Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar recording. My name is Michelle Herrera and with me is Jennifer Crawford and we are RBFCU's financial education team. As part of the financial education team here at RBFCU, we're committed to sharing beneficial personal financial information to individuals in the community that we serve. Throughout the year, we partner with departments across the credit union to bring awareness and information on various financial topics. Today, we are honored to have Alex Aguillen, Assistant Vice President of Enterprise Fraud, present on the topic of navigating through fraud in a digital world. Without further ado, we will turn it over to Alex to provide you this valuable information.
Thank you, Michelle. As Michelle stated, my name is Alex, and I have over 20 years experience in the financial services industry, over 15 of those years dealing specifically with fraud. I take the impact of fraud in our communities very personally, and I bring the passion of preventing fraud to the office every single day with me. And I'm hoping that today, that in this presentation, out of all the information that I'm going to cover with you, that you take away at least some bits and pieces of information on how to protect yourself for some of the common fraud scams that we're currently seeing in the industry. As Michelle stated, the title of this presentation is Navigating Through Fraud in a Digital World. In recent years, fraudsters have taken to digital platforms to compromise individuals' accounts, personal information, and just overall exploiting the channels that we communicate with nowadays. In today's discussion, we're going to talk about spoofing and impersonation, social media, get-rich-quick scams, card payment and P2P fraud scams, identity theft, and of course, how to protect yourself and provide you some of the resources available to report some of these scams and fraud trends. So I wanted to share first some information from the FBI's Internet Crime Reporting Statistics from 2017 through 2021. I kind of wanted to highlight some of the trends that we've seen that go hand in hand with what we're going to be talking about today. Unfortunately, I don't have 2022's data as of today. The FBI has not posted their internet crime reporting statistics for 2022, but we're looking to have that updated soon. But if you'll see, from 2017, the reports of phishing, vishing, smishing, and farming, and those forms of social engineering were relatively low for cases that were reported directly to the FBI. Same with identity theft. But in 2019, we saw an uptick of that. The reports more than doubled, and that trend continued in 2020 and in 2021. As we all know, one of the large events that happened in that time frame was COVID, and people just began communicating via digital, platforms more often, as opposed to actually communicating in person with retail stores and merchants, or physically using their cards or making payments in person. A lot of our communication and the way we handle our finances went digital for that period of time. And the fraudsters knew this, and they decided to take advantage of it. You'll also see a breakdown of the top 10 states by victim loss when it comes to dollars in the millions. This information is skewed by the fact that it is per capita, and the California, Texas, New York, Florida, we all know have the largest populations, but it doesn't take away from the fact that Texas still lost $606 million that were cases that were specifically reported to the FBI, and ranked number 2 within the country. So that just highlights some of the impact of the trends of the identity theft and phishing and vishing scams that were going on, and how it impacted our communities and the amounts of monies that were lost due to these trends. So let's talk about spoofing and impersonation. Spoofing is a form of fraud where fraudsters disguise an email address, a sender name, a phone number, a text message, or even a website URL, and they try to convince you that you're interacting with a trusted source. The main goal of this is obtaining some of your sensitive information, whether that's your account information, your online banking credentials, your social, your name, your card number. Just so much information can be shared when you feel that you're talking to a trusted source. The fraudsters will imitate financial institutions, of course, government agencies, merchants and retailers, and even sometimes your work or other business entities that you communicate with. With the digital age now among us, it's not hard for the fraudsters to do this. One of the main channels that we've seen an uptick with in 2022 coming into 2023 is the text message spoofing. Here's some examples that we'd like to share with you of what a spoofed text message looks like and what a true text message from RBFCU would look like. If you'll see here in example number 1, the outlines in red show that the text message is coming from an actual phone number, but it does state RBFCU alert, our team has restricted your online banking activities. And to confirm your account credentials, click here. These will come in many forms or fashions. It may say that there is a unauthorized transaction that we want you to validate. It may say that your accounts have been locked, your card has been locked, that there's an urgent matter that we need to discuss with you. And in order to do that, we need to confirm your online banking credentials, or you can log in and communicate with us just by clicking this link. That's a spoof text message, and the sole purpose of this is for the fraudsters, wanting you to click on that link and provide your online banking credentials, so then they can have access to your online banking platform to conduct transactions. An example of what a valid text message looks like shows that the text message is coming from what we call a short code. It's a 5 to 6 digit number that is specifically owned by the company who registers it. In this case, this is an RBFCU text message, and that is a short code that RBFCU owns. It's stating that your RBFCU debit card has been changed to lost or stolen status. If you did not make this change, please contact us. There's no links for you to click on to direct you to the online banking site. It's asking you to contact us specifically at hopefully a number or a website that you know belongs to RBFCU. Just one of the many methods that the fraudsters will use to try to trick you into providing your credentials or your personal information via text message. So some other examples of spoofing and impersonation include, like I already explained, financial institutions, merchant sales or tech support. Fraudsters will impersonate merchant support or tech support to obtain payment information or device takeover to install malicious software. They may contact you on your cell phone stating that they're Google Pay or Apple Pay or Microsoft, and that your subscription to a certain product or platform has run out, or you need to update your payment methods, and trick you into providing your card information or your checking account information, or sometimes your credentials, such as your username and password for that specific platform. P2P transfer service support, as I just mentioned, Venmo, Cash App, Apple Cash, and PayPal are all popular methods of payment in today's age. Fraudsters know this. They know that a lot of us have those type of accounts because they're quick, easy, and convenient. They also know, like financial institutions, that they have many fraud or fraud detection or preventative measures or departments that reach out to their members sometimes to validate transactions. So they will attempt to impersonate these P2P merchants and state that there is a risk to your accounts, or that your accounts have been hacked, or that there is a payment, a large payment that they want to verify with you, posing as the support for these P2P transfer service applications, and very convincingly trick you into providing that information. They'll use fear and urgency, try to trick you into saying that they're trying to protect your accounts and prevent this large transaction from going through. You just need to provide your username and transfer your balance over to a secure account. A lot of things that they'll try to tell you to steal your money. Government agencies, around tax season, we'll see fraudsters impersonate government agencies such as the IRS or other benefit services such as Medicare to obtain personal information, social security numbers, names, date of births. Also create urgency to pay over the phone, such as back taxes, or there may be a warrant out for your arrest, or there may be some type of a lien that's going to be placed on your finances if you don't pay immediately. And they'll ask you to verify account information, or sometimes send payments in real time to them. All methods that fraudsters will use to try to attempt to spoof and impersonate legitimate organizations. Website spoofing is also a very popular method. If you've ever had to Google a specific business or merchant like Amazon or another big box store like a Walmart or Target, even RBFCU, like this example shows, it is very possible for fraudsters to hijack legitimate sites and change the URLs and some of the verbiage to mirror the site that you're trying to actually visit. And it's very hard to detect unless you're paying close attention. This is an example of a RBFCU spoofed site that was posted over a weekend that looked very similar to RBFCU's online banking website. The only difference is that the URL did not match, of course. RBFCV member area is not our true site. It's not rbfcu.org, which you would actually go to visit the RBFCU site. But the fraudsters actually paid for this site to be sponsored at the top of Google. So when RBFCU is Googled, this came online. What they'll do then is obviously allow you to try and log into the website, providing your username and password. And of course, no login would occur. You keep entering your username and password, and every time you do, the fraudster would capture that information and use it to log into the actual RBFCU.org site with your credentials to initiate transactions, maybe change demographic information, cancel and order debit cards, and everything else that they can do with full site access. So it's very important to pay attention to the URLs. Only visit trusted sites and make sure that you're typing in the link yourself and not following the links that could be malicious or fraudulent. Social media. Who does not have a social media account nowadays? Even me, at my age, I have one or two that I use just for monitoring purposes, for news and updates. But it is a very popular method for fraudsters to communicate with the consumer base and our member base. A lot of the activities that take place are social engineering. There can also be links and malicious software embedded in tweets or posts. It's also a method that they use to build relationships with people to try to coax them into falling for romance scams or friend scams. It's also something that they'll use for money scams, to advertise get-rich-quick scams, or maybe pose as philanthropists wanting to help out individuals. It's something that we see on a regular basis, where fraudsters are using sites like the ones depicted in the image here to advertise and recruit and trick people into being involved in a fraud scam, being taken advantage of, or being a complicit victim is what we like to call it. One of those types of scams is going to be a get-rich-quick scam, a deposit fraud scam, if you will. A lot of times the fraudsters will post social media posts, such as the examples here, showing tons of money with receipts for the transactions that were conducted, trying to get account holders to participate in deposit fraud. That would mean that a check or a transfer is deposited into our account holder's account, or you're asked to withdraw the funds, or provide your debit card information to the fraudsters as well, so they can conduct the withdrawal themselves with promises of a large piece of the pie or return for some of the funds that they've deposited into the account. One thing to keep in mind is that the funds that are being deposited into the accounts with these scams are never legitimate funds, and at one point or another are going to be recalled out of the account, or the deposited check is going to return and the account holder is going to be held liable. During the investigation, if the account holder is found to be a participant in the scheme or was aware of the scheme, they could be held not only financially responsible but also legally responsible. So it's important to not fall for these types of scams. Don't like or share or respond to any of these messages. A lot of times the fraudsters will even send direct messages via social media to people who they have seen bank or are members of those specific financial institutions. So again, it's just another method that fraudsters are using to try to entice people to participate in these get-rich-quick scams. Card payment fraud is another type of fraud that is very prevalent in the financial services industry. Majority of the card information in previous years was captured via skimming devices. We all have cards here that have now EMV chips and then magnetic stripes on the backs of the cards. The common method for skimmers to capture the card information is through your magnetic stripe being swiped at either a gas station pump or ATM terminal, or a terminal that has an overlay with the magnetic stripe skimming device on top of the actual legitimate card entry or payment method. We have a little screenshot here of what that looks like. The card is swiped. It reads your card. A pinhole camera may capture your PIN number as well. Once the device is removed, that information of all of the people who use that specific terminal is captured, and duplicate cards are able to be created and then used for purchases. Now, with the rollout of the EMV chip that you see depicted on all of the RBFCU cards listed there, skimmers are primarily only located now on gas station pumps and maybe some outdated ATM machines that don't have the EMV chip terminals. I can tell you that as of now, the chip terminals are a very safe method of payment. The chips cannot be compromised or duplicated. Your only worry for skimming devices is going to be at terminals where you're actually swiping your magnetic stripe, not where the chip is being read. Probably the most common method of card information being captured now is through data breaches. As I mentioned previously, the past 3 years, the shift for online purchases has dramatically increased, as well as the amount of data breaches that are happening at corporations that accept online payments. With those data breaches, sometimes your personal information, your demographic information, and of course your card payment information is stored and compromised due to those data breaches. We've all heard, what is it now, maybe 7 to 8 or 9 years ago, that large data breaches that took place at Home Depot and Target, where hundreds of thousands of people's card informations were compromised and used for fraudulent means. Those type of data breaches happen pretty much every single day on smaller scales. Maybe it's not hundreds of thousands, but maybe it's just a couple of hundred, payment information's exposed due to data breaches at smaller businesses. That happens very, very often. And that's how card information gets compromised and used. Typically, what you'll see is when the card information is compromised via data breaches, the same type of fraud will occur. It'll be online purchases that are used, that the card information is used for. And that's something that our team monitors very heavily. P2P payment schemes is also another popular trend. People are tricked into making payments for products or services, and they'll never receive those products or services. As I mentioned before, the P2P payment services like Cash App, Zelle, Venmo are very popular methods of payment. There's specific steps that you have to take when you're using those platforms to purchase goods or services. A lot of times the fraudsters will ask you to send the money as a gift or a friend or family transfer, as opposed to a purchase for goods or services. That's just, with those transfers, they're instantaneous and leaves the consumer with little recourse in disputing those transactions when it's transferred via those means. So we would always encourage you to not transfer as a gift or a friend or family member transaction, and always take the proper channels when making the purchases. Use a secure method of payment. Make sure you're shopping at trusted sources as well, and not sending goods and services purchases through P2P avenues. As I mentioned before, safer payment methods are always going to be the EMV chips that are installed on your cards. Also, all of us have one of these here. Your mobile wallet is going to be a good resource to be able to submit payments as well, adding your cards to your device and your mobile wallet. Tap to pay, because all of that information is encrypted. And when you conduct those transactions, those merchants are not actually receiving your card information. They're receiving encrypted data that's transmitted back to the financial institutions that we then process to your actual card. So it's just an overall safer method of payment. Identity theft, as I mentioned in sharing the data and the stats with the FBI internet crimes, we saw a huge uptick in identity theft. Want to kind of clarify the difference between synthetic identity theft and true identity theft. Synthetic identity theft is, from a financial institution standpoint, a little bit easier to identify because it's when the fraudsters are using bits and pieces of your personal information along with other people's personal information, or even some information that may be made up. So it may be your social security number with my name and somebody else's address, and they're trying to establish a loan, a line of credit, or an account with that information. True identity theft is a bit harder to identify because fraudsters then tend to use somebody's 100% true identity. So they're going to have your name, your date of birth, your social, your occupation, your income, your address, and they're going to try to establish an account at a institution that is maybe near your home that the people in your area or footprint typically bank at. And it's going to look like a legitimate account for all intents and purposes, and be harder to identify until the actual fraudulent activity happens. One way to not become a victim, or several ways to not become a victim of identity theft, is going to be to protect sensitive documents, shred or discard documents. Don't just throw them in your trash can. Make sure that if you are discarding, credit card applications, some of the things you get in the mail for credit card offers that have your name and address on them, your tax documents, if you're discarding them and shredding them, make sure that you're disposing of them securely. Ask questions before providing your information to businesses. What your information is going to be used for, how is it going to be safe and secure. I'm very cautious of myself entering in my social security number and date of birth into any online platform or site that isn't a trusted source, or that is something that I just don't feel 100% secure about. If you feel that you've been a victim of identity theft, it's very important that you're continuously monitoring your credit reports to see if any accounts or lines of credits have been established under your names. That's one of the, sometimes the proactive measures don't work, but it's also good to be reactive and checking your reports every day to get ahead of it before, something terrible happens, or maybe mitigate the losses by reporting it sooner. We've talked about a lot of different methods that fraudsters are using in this digital age. I wanted to go over a few bullet points that we've talked about on how to protect yourself. You want to make sure that alerts and messages are being sent from SMS shortcodes, like I stated before, and that you're not clicking on any links that are being sent to you via email or text message as well. Do not provide one-time passcodes, credentials, account information, security questions, or any type of passwords on calls that you did not initiate. 9 out of 10 times, I'd say probably 100% of the time, legitimate companies are not going to contact you and then ask to verify all of that information, because it should be information that we already have on hand. When it comes to get-rich-quick scams, or philanthropists online, or people reaching out to you with offers that sound too good to be true, it probably is. So we would avoid any contact or responses with those type of individuals online. For your passwords, you're going to want to use for all of your finances, accounts, merchant accounts, things like that. You're going to want to use complex phrases for passwords. Gone are the days where we can put, my password is Alexander 123, or my first son's name and my favorite number, or the year I was born with my high school. Those password days are gone, because that's all information that's accessible to fraudsters via social engineering, social media accounts, and even just digging around on the internet and doing some research about a specific individual. So we ask that you use complex phrases for passwords, something like, my school is, or my favorite son is, or my pet's first name is, just using sentences, and you don't ever want to use the same password across all accounts. You're going to want to mix that up as well, because if a fraudster does happen to crack the code and guess or learn one of your passwords for your MasterCard credit card account, then they may have access to your RBFCU online banking now, because it's the same password, or your Walmart or Target.com account, because it's the same password. So you want to make it as difficult as possible for them, and create different passwords across different platforms. As I mentioned before, suspicious links, you're not going to want to click on them, and you're going to want to also verify the links that you are entering in online when you search for specific sites. Monitor your accounts and credit reports often, and of course, if you see something, report it immediately. Whether that's a transaction you don't recognize, a line of credit that's opened up in your name that you didn't authorize, you get an email from your financial institution or some other account that you hold stating that there was unauthorized logins from a specific device. Those are some things that you don't want to take lightly, and you want to act on quickly and report them immediately. Some resources here that we have listed, FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. They have an outlet for you to be able to report scams that you maybe have been victimized by, some fraud that you've maybe been victimized by. On the site, you can also find the How We Can Help You section as well that helps share some more of the tips that I provided on how to avoid becoming a victim of some of these scams. Federal Trade Commission, Protecting America's Consumers at ftc.gov is another great resource where you're able to report businesses and scams that, or businesses that you may have been scammed by or that you feel may not be legitimate. Websites, links, text messages that you've received, emails that you've received are all able to be reported to the Federal Trade Commission as well. And of course, on our own site, rbfcu.org, we have a RBFCU Security and Fraud Center that you can click on that has not only the information that I've covered, but much more information on how to identify scams, phishing and spoofing, and what to do once you become a victim of that or suspect that you may be a victim of it. And of course, we want to thank you for your time and watching this recording, and hopefully you've been able to obtain some information that is helpful to you. And I'll turn it back over to Michelle and Jennifer.
Thank you so much for that informative information, Alex. We appreciate you taking the time to record this webinar for our community and our members. That being said, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions. You can reach Alex at the contact information listed on the website, and you can also reach Jennifer and myself via our email, which is financialeducation@rbfcu.org. Thank you again for joining us today, and have a wonderful day.